Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the first episode of the Urdu Seekhiye podcast. My name is Shireen.
And I'm Wajiha. Assalamu alaikum everyone, and thank you very much for joining us.
If you listened to the introductory episode, you already know a little bit about the format of this series. And if you didn't, no worries. We'll basically have a conversation and explain it in 3 parts. Our first conversation will demonstrate how you can introduce yourself to someone. Before we begin, I just want to remind you of the benefits of repeated practice, especially when learning a new language. So with that, let's hear our first dialogue.
Assalamu alaikum. आपका क्या नाम है?
Wa alaikum assalam. मेरा नाम शिरीन है. और आपका?
मेरा नाम वजीहा है. आप कहाँ से हैं?
मैं ह्यूस्टन से हूँ. क्या आप भी ह्यूस्टन से हैं?
नहीं, मैं ह्यूस्टन से नहीं हूँ. मैं इस्लामाबाद से हूँ.
अच्छा, आपसे मिलकर खुशी हुई. फिर मिलेंगे.
मुझे भी. खुदा हाफिज. Let's hear the dialogue one more time before we move on to part 2. Assalamu alaikum. आपका क्या नाम है?
वालेकुम अस्सलाम. मेरा नाम शिरीन है. और आपका?
मेरा नाम वजीहा है. आप कहाँ से हैं?
मैं ह्यूस्टन से हूँ. क्या आप भी ह्यूस्टन से हैं?
नहीं, मैं ह्यूस्टन से नहीं हूँ. मैं इस्लामाबाद से हूँ.
अच्छा, आपसे मिलकर खुशी हुई. फिर मिलेंगे.
मुझे भी. खुदा हाफिज.
Okay, so now in part 2, we'll provide the translation.
अस्सलामु अलैकुम. आपका क्या नाम है?
May peace be upon you. What is your name?
वा अलैकुम अस्सलाम. मेरा नाम शीरीन है. और आपका?
And upon you peace. My name is Shireen. And yours?
मेरा नाम वजीहा है. आप कहाँ से हैं?
My name is Wajiha. Where are you from?
मैं ह्यूस्टन से हूँ. क्या आप भी ह्यूस्टन से हैं?
I am from Houston. Are you from Houston too?
नहीं, मैं ह्यूस्टन से नहीं हूँ. मैं इस्लामाबाद से हूँ.
No, I'm not from Houston. I am from Islamabad.
अच्छा, आपसे मिलकर खुशी हुई. फिर मिलेंगे.
I see. It was nice to meet you. See you later.
मुझे भी. खुदा हाफिज.
Me too. Goodbye. Let's now move to the third part, where we discuss each line in more detail. We started off the dialogue with Assalamu alaikum. What does that mean, Wajiha?
Well, it's a common greeting in the Muslim world, though you don't have to be Muslim to use it. In fact, it's not even in Urdu. It's in Arabic. But most Muslims use it despite their native tongue. So, Assalamu alaikum means may peace be upon you, and the response is Wa alaikum assalam, which is pretty much saying the same thing back. May peace be upon you also.
That's right. A friend of mine once told me that he sees this as if 2 people were praying for one another. Essentially, they're wishing each other well. What better way to start a conversation?
Definitely. You'll see as we continue these dialogues that we'll come across other phrases which are said conversationally but have religious connotations and are simply phrases that wish the other person well.
Exactly. So after you said, Assalamu alaikum, you asked, Aapka kya naam hai? Aapka kya naam hai means,
What is your name? So, aap means you and aapka together means your. Your is our possessive adjective. Naam means name. Kya means what. And hai is our to be verb, and in this case it means is. So together we're asking, what is your name? Aapka kya naam hai?
And before we go on, you might be thinking, what the heck is a be verb? And if you want to learn more about be verbs, because they will keep appearing in our sentences, take a look at the handout available for this episode. So let's return to Aapka kya naam hai? This is a question that stays the same always, despite the gender of the person asking or the person being asked.
Good point. Sometimes certain words change based on gender, and of course, we'll point them out when that happens.
Right. Okay, so to your question, Aapka kya naam hai? I responded, Mera naam Shireen hai. Again, it remains the same despite the gender. So if my name were Ali, a common male South Asian name, I'd say, Mera naam Ali hai. So the only new word in this sentence is mera, and it means my. After saying, my name is Shireen, I asked you what your name was by saying, aur aapka?
So earlier we talked about how aapka means your or yours. So the new word here is or. Can you guess what that might mean? It means and. So this phrase translates to and yours. Instead of asking the complete question, aapka kya naam hai, you can shorten it by simply asking aur aapka.
Speaking of aapka, you chose to address me using aap. But how else could you have addressed me, Wajiha?
Well, I could have addressed you using tum or tu. There are 3 cases of respect. So there are 3 ways in which you can say you in Urdu. First, let's look at aap. Aap is the formal case. You would use aap to talk to someone who is older than you or someone you don't know well.
So like someone you're meeting for the first time.
Right. Next we have tum. Tum is the informal case and used in a casual setting. For example, with family and friends and those who may be younger than you. Tu is the impolite case, and we recommend that you don't use it at all. But we wanted to include it so you can recognize it if you hear it.
But you know, my dad uses tu to address my mom. And we don't want to offend anyone who does use it in their home.
So here's the thing about tu. If you use it with someone you don't know very well, then it's extremely rude. But if you use it with someone you know very well, then it's seen as a sign of closeness. It's a way of saying that there are no secrets between us. It's often reserved for people who are extremely close to one another.
So it sounds like there's a certain understanding between the two. That's sweet, but I'm still not a fan of tu. I don't speak Urdu too often with people who are my age, so I find myself only using aap for the most part. But I know that in the South Asian region, social class comes into play in this equation. I see people who are dining at restaurants refer to the waiters using tu, and people address their drivers using tu. Also, another factor that comes into play is gender. Men, particularly husbands, will refer to their wives using tum, while women will address their husbands using aap. That's a cultural thing, and it's what I noticed while growing up. What have you noticed, Wajiha, among the interactions that you have and those around you have?
I think you're right, Shireen. Among the older generations, most men address their wives as tum, whereas the women call their husbands using aap. But this has changed recently, especially in Pakistan, with both the husbands and wife addressing each other with the same case, either tum or aap. However, I think it depends on the couple and their relationship.
Fair enough. But if you're ever in doubt of whether to use tum or aap, I'd go with aap. Let's keep moving. So to the question, aur aapka, you replied, Mera naam Wajiha hai. And that means?
My name is Wajiha. Then I asked you, आप कहाँ से हैं? So the new words here are कहाँ से हैं. Kaha means where and se is a postposition, which means from. So in English we have prepositions like in, on, from, and they come before the words they modify, like in Houston or from Iran. But in Urdu they come after the word they modify, as you'll see in the response to the question, आप कहाँ से हैं? So, se is our postposition meaning from. Our be verb here is हैं, which in this case means are. Where are you from? आप कहाँ से हैं?
That was a great explanation. So the response to आप कहाँ से हैं is simply मैं Houston से हूँ. And that means I'm from Houston. The new word here is हूँ, which is our to be verb, and it means am. So the question was, आप कहाँ से हैं? And the response, मैं Houston से हूँ. Then I asked, क्या आप भी Houston से हैं? Which you might be able to guess means,
are you from Houston too? So the new words here are क्या and bhi. Kya here doesn't mean what. Here, it's used as a word to indicate that whatever is being said will be a question. It's a question indicator. So commonly questions begin with question words like what, where, who, when, etc. So if the question you're asking doesn't contain a question word, then adding kya to the front confirms that it is a question. Kya aap bhi Houston se hain? Are you from Houston too? And bhi means also or to. To the question, kya aap bhi Houston se hain? I respond,
नहीं, मैं Houston से नहीं हूँ. मैं Islamabad से हूँ. You can guess that nahi means no. To say I'm not from Houston, Wajiha says, मैं Houston से नहीं हूँ. And to say I am from Islamabad, she says, मैं Islamabad से हूँ. Since there are no new words here, let's move along. So I then say, अच्छा, आपसे मिलकर खुशी हुई. फिर मिलेंगे. So अच्छा in this context means okay or I see. But अच्छा could also mean good.
right. If I wanted to say he is a good boy, I would say ye अच्छा बच्चा है. But in the context of this dialogue, अच्छा means okay or I see.
So let's better examine the sentence आपसे मिलकर खुशी हुई. आपसे means from you. Se is a postposition meaning from. And mil means meet. It is the root verb of milna, to meet. Kar means do. And the infinitive form of this verb is karna, meaning to do. So whenever I say a verb with to in front of it, that's just the infinitive form. So some of the verbs we've talked about in their infinitive form are to be, to meet, and to do. Their Urdu equivalents are hona, milna, and karna. In Urdu, when we have two actions happening one after another, we add kar to the root of the first verb. For example, milkar. So the literal translation of aapse milkar khushi hui is, having met you, I became happy. In that sentence, we've got two verbs, two actions, the meeting and the becoming happy. That's why we say milkar. And as we progress, I'll provide more examples of this type of structure. But if this grammar stuff is not making any sense to you, don't even worry about it.
Yes, Just know that aapse milkar khushi hui means it was nice to meet you. Keep it simple, Shireen.
Yes, that's something I'm working on. Okay, so let's keep going. We're almost done. So I want to make sure that I have covered every word in that previous sentence. Khushi means happiness. And with hui, it means became happy. So khushi hui roughly translates to became happy. But again, just know that aapse milkar khushi hui means it was nice to meet you.
And phir milenge means see you later. Phir can either mean then, later, or again, and milenge is the future tense of to meet. So it literally means we'll meet again. And now to finish it off, I responded with mujhe bhi. Knowing what bhi means, what do you think mujhe bhi means?
It means me too. So I said, it was nice to meet you, and you responded, me too.
That's right. I personally don't recommend that you get too attached to learning the grammar. Just focus on speaking for now and the pronunciation, and with time the grammar will start making sense on its own. So finally, Khuda Hafiz, more commonly said as Khudafiz, is another one of those well-wishing phrases. And as before, Khudafiz isn't Urdu. It's in the Persian language. It literally means, may God protect you. And it's commonly said when two people are parting, and just like the greeting in the beginning, it is not limited to Muslims.
Very true. Okay, so you should be very proud of yourself as you finished a very lengthy lesson on how to introduce yourself in the Urdu language. As a thank you for tuning in, we're including the handout for free for anyone who's listening with us. I highly recommend that you download it if you're interested in learning how to read and write Urdu, and if you're interested in the grammar. That's it for now. Please be sure to visit our Facebook page and let us know what you thought. You can also email us your thoughts or questions at urduseekhiye@gmail.com. Thank you very much for joining us.
Phir milenge. Khuda Hafiz.